Technologies presents Weld Wednesday with AWS. Brought to you by the American Welding Society. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Bryn. So thanks for coming out for this month's edition of Weld Wednesdays with AWS. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your welding journey, kind of transitioning from going to welding school and then kind of getting into the industry and some of the things, kind of that surround that topic. So where did you go to school at?
Well, college-wise for welding, we got to take it back even further because I had a very slow transition into the industry. Our high school, our local high school, Grand Island Senior High, well, now it's called the Academies of Grand Island Senior High, because they say academies, but it's kind of like a trade school for almost every career you could think of. When you're a freshman, it's called freshman exploration, where you take all these tests about, your attitude, what career would fit you, what kind of category. And mine said something about using my hands and like a visual learner. So then we took a test at the end of the year, and it listed out all the academies you could choose, right? And I chose pretty much everything blue collar. I chose like construction, HVAC, roofing, concrete, and then my fifth one was welding. And I didn't want to weld. The only reason I put that in number 5 was because my dad was a welder when I was growing up. So I threw that in there, and then sophomore year comes around and they tell me, hey, you got put in welding. Oh my gosh, all right. So sophomore year, you start in like the welding elective classroom, which is at the high school. It's like a mix of a wood shop, welding, and machining. And so you're in there, you're just running coupons. I didn't even set my machine all of sophomore year. That instructor, he just retired actually, Mr. Naylor. He sets your machine, he does everything, and they were horrible beads, and I was getting all angry. But if you can't transfer academies, you can do it one time while you're in it, but if you already did that sophomore year, then I was thinking I was in too deep, right? And junior year comes around and COVID hits, but I'm still in the welding. So the entire high school shut down earlier than most places. I think it was in the beginning or middle of the first semester, and I was actually stuck in Arizona. When it first hit, the airport shut down. We got a rental car and drove that home. But we come back, and all your gen eds and stuff are shut down, so you're doing that online. But you couldn't damage your grades. You could only get it better. They wouldn't deduct any points. If you did bad on a test, it wouldn't damage it, which was a horrible thing because that's how I got through Spanish. I was going to fail for sure, but I ended up passing, and but the welding shop stayed open at the college. So the high school partnered up with the local community college, Central Community College, and so I started going there. And I had pretty bad anger issues and wasn't a good welder. So, man, when I would stick my rod, I'd take it off, throw it, stuff like that. It was not good, but once I started seeing progress, and then it all kind of changed. Like it was almost like a sport. The better I got, the more passionate I was. I wanted to learn more. Junior, and I was young for my grade, so I think I was 15 I would have been 16 junior year. So there was that, and I got closer to the instructors, and I just fell in love, and I started posting on social media, and that also helped the growth. I think that's the reason I never got burnt out or anything. And then late junior year, they offer apprenticeships with local shops. It's pretty much a manufacturing city in Nebraska. Case New Holland, Hornady Ammunition, a lot of agricultural manufacturers. And so I started working there. And that's where I started working was actually where my dad was welding when he was my age. And then he's still there about 30 years later. When he was 18, he started there, and he never left.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's why I chose that shop. And that's how I got started was agricultural manufacturing. The same thing over and over and over, mass fabrication. There was like two TIG welders at the time. They would do man lift baskets for all tech service trucks, and the rest of it was just throw something on, and as long as it sticks before it gets out the shop.
Oh, that's comforting.
Well, there was some, pretty much every major tractor brand you can think of, we did work for, and there were some that had really low quality needs, or
Craftsmanship or lack
Yeah.
thereof.
yeah.
Now, so what, like with your welding program there, obviously you went through welding, but were there like, because you got a degree in it,
Right.
what were like the other classes that you had to take when it came to welding? Did you have like blueprint reading? Was there fabrication math or anything like that?
I wish there was fabrication math. I'm horrible at math, but I would love to learn more. Um, so there, in college, it was kind of like electives that the welding teachers would recommend. So right next door was the drafting programs classroom, and so a lot of us got into drafting, or blueprints was also through that class. So I did blueprints. Pretty much everybody did blueprints through Amy Stewart, a great teacher. She worked with the welders a lot, a lot better than her students, because we required more
Attention.
thorough education. And yeah, she was great. And she actually came from the same plant where I was working at the time, and most of us students were working. So she knew everything about what we were doing and tried to like help us by giving us examples that we're used to every day.
Making it relevant.
You're right. And then the math classes, they would send us into occupational math, which it was probably the easiest math class they offered, and I think that's why they would recommend it to us welders. But I think it also probably best fit us. So yeah, but through high school, I was able to graduate college with my associates pretty early at 18. High school at 17, college at 18, yeah. And the reason that is because junior year, you take 2 welding classes at the college per semester, but I had taken some gen eds through the college as well. Dual credit, I think is what they call that. And so I had a couple of my gen eds knocked out. I already had a student number. I was registered and all that. So through the college, I would take 2 classes a semester of welding. Starts with like MIG 1, MIG 2. And then the next semester, junior year, was, cutting, or some stick 1 and cutting. So there's 4 plus my gen eds I already had done. And then senior year, Skills USA, I couldn't compete junior year. They wouldn't let me. And so senior year, I was able to compete in Skills USA, and I wanted it bad. So what I would do is I'd go to work from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then go to 2 regular gen eds in high school. And then afternoon, I would go back to work till night classes started at 3:30, and I'd stay there till 9. So it was 4 to 9 o'clock the entire year, between work, high school, and college. And I was training hard. I was super upset when I lost, but it was, I lost in Skills USA because I said a cuss word during the competition, and the judge didn't like that. He yelled out, "No swearing." And then there was something. Oh, tattoos. I was on the team Fab that year, and one of my teammates had tattoos, and you got to wear a button-up white long sleeve shirt and all that. He wore a short sleeve white button-up shirt with his tattoos showing, so that was a deal breaker too. But gosh, that competition is. I go every year, and I don't know anybody competing, and I'm not a judge or nothing. I still go watch though. It's just it's a great event.
Yeah, I got to go up to Lincoln when they held World Skills a couple years ago, and it's a very impressive competition, and to see like the level of quality that those people are putting into those welds, it's insane. It looks like you go over there and look at the table where they have all the coupons laid out, and it looks like they just came off of like a cobot system or some sort of automated welding system, Buggo, something to that effect. I mean, everything is it looks perfect.
Right. I was able to meet Jordan Packer at Atlanta. No, actually, I didn't. I met him in person in Chicago Fab Tech this last year, but I knew of him before that. And man, the stuff he posts is just insane, and the benefits he's gotten since then. But that I thought I worked hard. I think Jordan definitely earned that.
When they start getting up to nationals and world skills, I mean, that's all they're doing. I mean, he did the same thing. He was working and practicing all the time. Putting in 16, 18-hour days between work and practice. It's insane. But I mean, it pays off. And that's what it comes down to, is a hood time, understanding the equipment, understanding the process, understanding the criteria, and just continuously holding yourself to a higher standard.
That's a program that I would love to be a part of, at least at the state size, and the FFA welding competition in Nebraska is pretty big too, but they're held the same day. So the guy that did the kid that I went to school with that competed in the solo competition had FFA and skills in the same day. So he drove 2 hours to the FFA, did that, drove 2 hours back, did skills, and then yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Right.
Now, do you think going through welding technologies, getting a degree, an associate's degree, do you think that's kind of helped you along your welding journey when it comes to employment? Like, do you think they kind of prepared you well enough to enter the job field? I think it's really cool that they had an apprenticeship program. I mean, that's tremendous. There's not too many trade schools, vocational colleges that actually kind of set you up with an apprenticeship.
Right, and there's a bunch of options of what shop you want to go to. The reason I chose the one that I went to is because it was the most diverse work, thick, thin metal. There was a structural steel plant and a tractor manufacturer, Case New Holland. But I wanted to work with a variety of materials, but the thing with the apprenticeship is it's a national apprenticeship registered through the Department of Labor. That's what you can't see it in the frame. For those listening, it's a paper with my name on it, but it says certified apprentice, combination welder, finished apprenticeship or something like that. And that program's great. And I do think if you would have asked me this a year ago, I probably would have said no, but I do think that the associate's degree has helped me now, because the shop that I work at now, I don't think there's a single person without a degree in what they do. And I don't know if I would have gotten the job if I didn't. I had some personal connections there that I had met through the school as well. That was a big part of school too, is networking. Before I left, I heard it on a podcast actually about networking. I'm not sure if it was your podcast. It was a long time ago. I heard once you're about to graduate school, go around and ask for everybody's number, right? That's what I did.
Yep.
And it's helped a lot. I mean, that's how I found out about this job opening. And if I have a question, I'll bounce it off of another guy that I trust that will know it, or that's his ballpark, not mine, stuff like that. So, yeah, I do think getting that associate's degree has definitely benefited me.
That's great. And like I said, the apprenticeship program, there's not too many. I mean, that's something that really should be brought back, is apprenticeship programs tying into local high schools and trade schools and stuff like that. Because once you develop those partnerships, the school then understands what the employer is looking for. The employer understands what the school can produce. They can kind of work together on that. And you essentially create a pipeline. Every time you get a graduating class, you get a new batch of employees that can come in. So, I mean, you make that pool, that selection pool a lot bigger, and you can start catering the training the closer that you work with that company. I did an AWS Weld Wednesday episode on apprenticeships, and they're just tremendously beneficial. Because aside from like most of the trades unions, you don't find apprenticeships anywhere. People go through a trade school or a welding school, they learn how to weld, and then they kind of get tossed out, and they may or may not have job placement assistance at that school. So you might be on your own when it comes to employment.
Right, and it's funny you say that, how the school and the local manufacturing companies, they get to kind of cater to the students on what they're going to find out in the industry, because I was invited to a local industry board meeting on behalf of this company I work for now last week. I didn't even know they did this, but they have all the local manufacturing companies come in, and we kind of do a group brainstorm and stuff like that. And it's just, that's the way it should be, because some people are going to go travel and weld, but a lot of people are going to stay here. Majority of the graduating class, I'd say, the program. So, yeah, I think that definitely helped me get a head start as well, um, in the local industry and with the job placement.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to finding a welding school, obviously you kind of went to, I'm assuming, the school that you were zoned for within your district. But for folks that, they get out of high school, they didn't have that opportunity, because I did the same thing. I was zoned for, West Orange High School out here in Central Florida. I really didn't have a choice. It worked out because they have, they have a trade school that's connected with Orange County Public School System. So I could go over and take welding classes. They provide culinary school, HVAC, cosmetology, small gas engines. But for folks that, they don't have those opportunities, if they're going out to look for a welding school, they want to go out and find one after they graduate, what do you think some of the things they should be looking for in a school are? Because every school offers a little bit something different, but then again, they're kind of all similar. So what are some of the specific things you think people should be looking for when they go look for a welding school?
I think they need to brainstorm more than I did, because I switched what category of the industry that I wanted to go into. In the beginning was, I saw like Austin Hill, Johnny Dabbs, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to make some slick welds on some high performance vehicles. And I went and took a weld test at this shop in Kansas, and I got the job offer, but it would have been a wreck. I would have learned a lot really fast and not the easy way. But so, I mean, if you're thinking pipeline, there's almost every college is going to have like pipe and stick rods and TIG torches, But if you really are looking for that job placement, you're going to have to do a couple tours. I think I would tour a bunch of schools, and, Precision Welding Academy is probably one that I would want to go to. I don't know how to pronounce Scott's last name.
Scott Robbie.
Robbie, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to take the guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seems like a really good school, well-rounded and well-managed. You got American Welding Academy. So I hear American Welding Academy's job placement is pretty good. I only know one graduate from there, and that's Robert Carpenter. And he had two job offers as soon as he left, and now he's a union boilermaker or pipe fitter. My bad, in Detroit, and he seems to be doing some pretty cool work, and he loves American Welding Academy. I think they probably got a good program down there. KWI, I saw you just had Keegan on the show from KWI. I think that's another good school. I've met two of their instructors now.
Oh yeah, Ashley and Bobby they're awesome, and Ashley does a lot of work with Skills and Skills USA and World Skills and all that too.
Right, and one thing that impresses me a lot, especially from I heard it before, but Keegan reminded me, is how they do crane training. I don't even know what else they do. They do crane, like stuff outside of the welding industry necessarily, but stuff that'll be useful and employers will definitely
all
look
related.
for.
So they'll do crane and signalman. I think they've got some safety classes. They do, I think, OSHA 10 and possibly OSHA 30. So, I mean, a lot of things that are relative to getting into the welding industry, whether it's, pipe or, ironwork or any of those. And you can kind of specialize in either one of them. But I think you brought up a good point when you were talking about, like, go visit these schools. Like, do massive amounts of research and then go visit the schools. You know, I mean, that's a big thing. It's like, it's a big decision, because going to welding school anymore, it's like buying a car. You may have to take out a sizable loan, but before you get into class. I mean, there's tuition assistance available. AWS has a bunch of scholarships you can apply for. There's all kinds of different scholarships to help offset some of the costs, but it's still a big decision, and you can't just jump on something because it's close and convenient and comfortable, and you really got to find out what you want to specialize in. I mean, if you want to do structural, most of your local community colleges, they focus in a lot on structural. Some of them are going to focus, heavy on pipe. So I know, like down here, Daytona State, they're big on pipe welding. When I taught over at Valencia College, we were big on structural and more or less manufacturing. Manufacturing was a big thing for us, just because we have so much manufacturing in the area. So if that's the area you want to get into, pick the school that kind of caters to the journey that you want to take. the hard part is not everybody knows what they want to do. I would even ask the students, day one of class, hey, what do you guys want to do once you learn how to weld? Thanks for coming out here, but what do you guys want to do with it? What are you expecting to learn while you're in the program? What do you want to learn from me? And then what do you want to do with it when you get out? And most of them really didn't have a clue. So I think, finding, if you don't know what you want to do, finding a school that kind of specializes in a little bit of everything may be a good choice. But if you definitely know you want to be a pipe welder, go find a school that specializes in pipe welding. If you know you want to do structural, find a school that, specializes in structural. If you know you want to do manufacturing, find a school that specializes in manufacturing. But if you're really not sure, maybe go down to the Votech Center or the local community college and just take a couple entry-level welding classes just to kind of see, A, whether you're going to like it or not, and B, what are some of the opportunities you can do with welding. Because it's amazing how many people really don't understand what welding is and how much you can actually do with it.
Right. Yeah, the school that specializes is really important. And if you're thinking you want to stay local throughout your entire career, like I knew I wanted to stay local. I plan on having kids early. I want to get married early. I knew I wanted to stay local. But it's hard to find that, especially in a place like Grand Island, Nebraska, where it's pretty much all agricultural work for welders around here. It's hard to find that perfect pay, close to you, and being happy with what you're doing, right? I got very lucky and found the money shot, my second job in the industry ever. But it took me a lot of searching. I was on Boom Nation, Indeed, Road Dogs. I was on pretty much everything, looking for local jobs that offered TIG welding, which is rare around here, good pay, and also quality over quantity. A lot of this is mass production. Throw something on there, doesn't have to look pretty, just has to hold. So finding that quality over quantity was huge for me, and through the college was the way to go, through the local Central Community College. Also because it's a degree, right? A lot of these schools, a lot of these trade schools don't offer degrees. A lot of certifications through in-house, AWS, whatever it may be. And you brought up a really good point with the scholarships, right? I applied for probably 20 scholarships, and because I didn't think I would get multiple, right? And I won one of the AWS ones. There was only 2 offered here in Nebraska, and I won one, and that was $10,000, and I only had 1 year left of college, and it was like $1,200 in total, so I got to keep the rest of that money. And then every other scholarship I won was also left over for me to receive. So that was kind of nice. And now when I go back and I speak to the high school, I tell them, scholarships, you got to apply for scholarships. If I wanted to, or if I didn't want to, I didn't have to work that year. But I did, because I wanted the experience on my resume for sure.
Yeah, scholarships are huge. I actually had a student when I was teaching full-time at the college, and I tell them day one, as soon as they come in, I know they've pretty much already got their tuition set up, that whether they're taking out a loan or paying out of pocket, because they would pay by term. I said, apply for the AWS scholarships now. That way, by the time your next payment is due or the next, round of tuition comes through, you more than likely will be selected or you'll have a decision by then. So, if it works out and you get selected, guess what? You don't have to, take care of that tuition payment. You don't have to take out another student loan. And I had one student, he got an AWS National Scholarship and an AWS District Scholarship. So, he made out like a bandit. It covered the cost of the entire second portion of the class. And had he not been afforded those opportunities, had he not won those scholarships, he would not have been able to take that second round, because he just couldn't put himself through taking out another loan. He wasn't able to come up with the money, which, welding schools can be expensive. And our school wasn't too bad. But still, that could make or break your decision whether you can continue on and complete a program or not.
Right.
And the scholarships are free to apply for, and they're super simple. They used to be a little bit more difficult back in the day. Now it's super simple for the applicant that's applying, but it's also simple. So if somebody wants to volunteer and be a member on the scholarship committee, that's also a super simple, streamlined process they've got like a little rubric on the right hand side of the screen, and you're able to make all your selection criteria based off specific things. It's like check yes, check no. So as you're reviewing the application, you're actually assigning the points. And then after the fact, you can go back and review everything, and then you could submit it. So it's super simple for the applicants as well as, the people that are screening the scholarships.
And it also covered my books. A lot of my fellow students were renting the books, but I knew I wanted to buy it in full so I could keep it for the rest of my life to go back to and look at, especially my metallurgy book. That definitely helps out now that I get into foreign materials a little bit. Being able to keep my books, maybe pass it down to my kid, hopefully. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to pass it down on a USB card or airdrop it to them. Kids don't read books anymore. It's both my kids, all their homework's online. I'm like, where's your homework? Bring it out here. Dad, I can't bring my computer out here. It's hooked up to the wall. Well, where's your textbook? We don't have those anymore. Oh, okay, go get your iPad.
That was even for me.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I didn't even carry a backpack to my whole senior year.
Just carry a smartphone. You got it all right there in your pocket now.
Yeah, just the school laptop. That's all I use.
Yeah, it's crazy how far technology has changed. So what are some of the things that, because you've been in the industry for, roughly 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
You're doing Department of Defense work. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. What are some of the things that you wished you would have learned while you were, either taking the entry-level welding classes or even going through your welding technologies associate's degree? What do you think some of the things that you wished you would have learned in school that you could be applying at work today?
I'm going through this right now. Codes. I should have. We had a codes class with a CWI. Michael Snell here at the college. He's a teacher, and we took the codes class. And I was out. I was at that mass production shop, and I was thinking I was never gonna leave. I was gonna climb the ladder like my dad did. And then I got this opportunity. I had to take it, but at that time, I didn't pay attention in codes at all because not much of it applied to us. And now I'm learning the hard way. I'm feeling the burn. I'm back with this CWI teacher. We're making we're qualifying a procedure right now, which he made us make WPSs while we were in that class and stuff. But again, I half-assed it. That codes class is what has really hit me the hardest now that I'm fully in the industry. Definitely codes, yeah.
So just like the difference between the different codes, or like what type of information's in specific codes, or?
I didn't pick up anything from it.
Oh.
Like at all. So right now we're qualifying a procedure, 3G aluminum MIG. And it's not a struggle, but I was kind of surprised by how low you have to keep that the heat in the aluminum.
But, yeah, the max interpass temperature, 250 degrees.
I think
it's hard on aluminum.
Yeah, it's pretty low, I thought, and it's a long weld too to qualify it. I think it's like with my runoff tabs and everything, it's like 16 inches or something like that.
Yeah, I think they're like 20-inch plates.
Yeah, it's long. Yeah.
I'd have to double check. Yeah, the doing a groove weld for aluminum, it's a much bigger test plate than most people think.
I didn't know that, and when he's telling me we're gonna, I should have never chose I shouldn't have said 3G. I just wanted it because it's like, well, I'd rather do that than flat. It sounds fun. And then he tells me how long the weld is. I'm like, dang, this is going to be trickier than I thought.
Just start it right about your knee, and then by the time you kind of get up mid-chest, you're done with it.
Right. So, yeah, codes is huge. And, doing Department of Defense work and some other, I'm just not used to doing this high quality of work. I mean, I would strive for quality, but at the previous job, but you had to find that perfect mix between keeping your boss happy with your rate per hour and also that quality. But now this is all about quality. Take your time, do it right the first time. And codes come into it from the customers that they want, or that they want us to stick to. And I'm learning for sure. Another thing,
manufacturing's pretty heavy in quantity and keeping up production. And then you get into these other shops, especially Department of Defense work, aerospace, anything like that. It's all, we don't care how long it takes. It's just got to be done and done correctly.
Right. And another thing metallurgy, that's a big one I should have paid more attention to as well. And it's so crazy because we have the perfect trio of teachers at that college. So John Wilmus, he owned 7 welding store locations and got bought out by Airgas in Nebraska, and this is kind of his retirement job, is teaching at the college. He loves it, so he knows everything about machines. He teaches the welder repair class. He teaches the metallurgy, and then you got Mike, the CWI, goes through codes and the harder classes, stuff like that. And then when you first come in, especially with the high schoolers, all the high schoolers go to Brandon Pearsall is his name. He was in the Army for, I think, 27 years, I want to say. And he was medically discharged, but great guy. And when I come in to the welding lab my junior year, and a lot of us high schoolers, we're knuckleheads, and I was a horrible student. I was a bum. I was probably the definition of a bum, right? And now I still talk to him. Like, I'm so thankful that he got me motivated for the real world. So we had the perfect trio of teachers, metallurgy and codes. 2 things I regret massively not paying attention in.
Yeah, metallurgy's one, that's a big one. That was something, because I've been to several different welding schools, and none of them ever touched on metallurgy. Like, I went through at the vocational level, while I was in high school, never discussed metallurgy. Went to the Marine Corps welding school up in Aberdeen, Maryland, never really discussed metallurgy other than you can't weld aluminum and steel together. They're dissimilar metals. That's about as far as they got into it. Same thing when I got into the Iron Workers Union. They're like, yeah, we don't mess with aluminum and stainless or anything else. It's all steel. Through the apprenticeship anyway, I ended up welding more aluminum and stainless when I was in the Iron Workers than any other time in my life, just because we did a lot of theme park work. But yeah, metallurgy is huge. That's something I wish that, more welding schools taught. That's something that I didn't teach at the classes that I was teaching, because obviously I don't know enough about it to teach it, and I'm not going to, teach a subject or a topic that I'm not proficient in. But yeah, metallurgy is huge. That's one thing I really want to learn. I've got access to the, so AWS has the online learning classes, and I need to pop on there because I've got access to metallurgy 1 and 2 to work on those. That's something that I've always wanted to get into and learn more about, especially being a CWI, is understanding metallurgy a little bit more. I think that's going to help me, further down my journey. But yeah, I'd say metallurgy is a big one. A lot of schools, they don't teach blueprints or fabrication math. That's something too. Like, if you're going to look into going to a welding school, try to find out and see if they have blueprints and, fabrication math at least. Fabrication math is huge. That's something that I kind of learned that on the fly as well. We never really learned that in school, but that's one thing that I tried to teach my students. It wasn't necessarily part of our curriculum, but I worked it in there all the time. Day one, I'm teaching how to read a tape measure, just because so many people don't know how to read a tape measure. So, we'd start that day one. After we went through orientation and welding safety, we got right into tape measures. And then I would slowly incorporate fabrication and fabrication math as they were going through. If I could show them how to build something and then show them how the math is relevant, they're a lot more receptive, because a lot of my students, they weren't, they're not stellar performers when it comes to math. And, so I would just kind of, if you don't tell people that they're doing math, they'll do really well at it. But if you say, hey, we're going to start doing some math, they kind of shut down immediately. That's a bad 4-letter word. So you just got to kind of package it up a different way for them and show them it's relevant and it's fun, because we're going to build some really cool stuff here in a minute once you get these measurements correct. And then they start buying in. And
there's one other topic or class that I really wish they taught, but they didn't teach. I probably wouldn't have even paid attention, because at the time I wasn't interested in this, but I wish there was some NDT that I could have learned early on. I said back then I wanted to be a CWI. I still do. But I haven't been with this company long enough to ask them if they'd cover it. But NDT, it was all bend tests is all we did. So no NDT at all. And that's something I wish I learned as well.
Yeah, NDT is another big one. I mean, just so you know what the inspectors coming over, where they're, what they're looking for, the techniques, the processes that they're using to test your welds. I mean, it's great information to know. Understanding weld sizes, what causes a lot of these discontinuities. NDT is huge. We did mostly bend testing as well. Destructive bend tests. We do guided bend tests for all of our groove welds and fillet weld break tests for all of our fillet welds. We do a little bit of macro etch, but those are all destructive processes. But I would also incorporate dye penetrant testing just to kind of expose them to it. We weren't testing on or anything, but just show them what, dye pen testing is, as well as magnetic particle testing. And I would kind of set up failure samples that I knew would fail. You drop a chunk of copper inside of a groove weld or a fillet weld, you weld over top of it, it'll produce a crack that you really can't see with the naked eye, but I can pick it up really quick with a mag particle or dye pen test, just to show them, like, here's some of the tools that you kind of have at your disposal. You can probably use these and check your work before you pass it off and say that it's good. Go through and check everything out. But yeah, NDT should definitely be a portion of the class. I always try to teach a little bit of NDT when it comes to visual. Visual acceptance criteria, being able to check things with a VWAC gauge or a fillet weld gauge or bridge cam, just to kind of expose students, because weld sizes can become critical. Not so much in production factories. I mean, they want to try to get away with the smallest weld possible that's going to hold because they're trying to get it out the door. But you start getting into the much higher quality work, they're going to start nitpicking your stuff pretty heavily, especially with, DOD stuff. I mean, but they're going to go in there and check all your weld sizes and make sure you're not under or over.
Right. I just saw dye penetrant testing in real life for the first time the other day, and it was on some of my work. I went back through.
Oh, wow.
A little bit. But that was a toolmaker problem that I had to go through and repair. So, but yeah, that was cool. That was a cool process. I would love to learn more of that. I need to start watching some videos on that.
Yeah, there's tons of online classes and stuff you can do for it. Like I said, I know AWS, we used to do the AWS learning platform at the school that I was teaching at, and that metallurgy was in there, but NDT techniques was also in there. So was fabrication math 1 and 2, blueprint reading. Like they got a bunch of good stuff in there. But yeah, if you don't have access locally, you can check out some of the stuff on AWS Learning, because they've got some really good content on there as well.
Yes, so something that kind of sucks is the nearest, AWS district. Like all the meetings are held 2.5 hours away. So.
Oh yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, that kind of stinks. But
get with your school. Tell them to set a section up in your area.
They did. They had one, but they said it's a lot of work. That guy John Wilmus that had 7 welding supply locations.
It's quite a bit of work to get it set up and then to keep it going. You gotta make sure you put the right team in place. And I kind of lucked out because we resurrected the one that was here in Central Florida, because I guess it had it disbanded like 7 years prior to me inquiring about setting one up. And I said, hey, why don't we have one in Central Florida? And they said, well, you did, but it fell apart. So as part of our requirements, we had to have at least the first 6 years of leadership. We had to have a commitment from AWS members basically saying, yes, I will serve on the committee in this capacity or that capacity for, at least the first 6 years. And I selected a really good group of people that I knew they weren't moving anytime soon. They were really passionate about the industry. They were already active in AWS section meetings. So they were, going up to those meetings as well. Cause it was roughly an hour and 45 minute, 2-hour drive to get to some of the section meetings for us. And so luckily, like I said, I picked those select few that live kind of in my area and said, hey, let's do this and trying to keep it local to Orlando. And we've been successful. I think we started in 2017 and we've been running it ever since.
I should look into that.
You got to find that right leadership. You got to find that good core group that's, going to put things together and help it move along and show up. That's the biggest thing, is you got to find people that are going to show up time and time again to run the section meetings or fill in when you're not able to attend, because everybody's got life commitments. There's everybody's got work, everybody's got kids, everybody's got school, everybody's got reasons they can't always be there. So we always try to keep, we cover each other's backs all the time. Just in case 1 or 2 people can't show up, we can still proceed with the meeting.
I should look into that. Well, as soon as you said 6 people, I thought about 6 people right away yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need 6 people, just 6 years of leadership.
Oh, six.
So you need, but I mean, you can have 6 people because you got a section chair, you got a vice chair, you got a second vice chair. You definitely need a treasurer, a secretary. You can even have a librarian. Having a section librarian is awesome because once you stand up a section or you're running a section, AWS is going to reach out to you at least once a year and say, hey, pick all these code books and specifications that you want for the section library. And then you basically assign a librarian so that local folks that are involved with that section or just any AWS members, they can call up and say, hey, I need to look through this code or standard. Do you guys have a copy of it? And you can decide whether or not to check that book out or just have them hang out at the section library wherever it is. It's usually in somebody's office or at a school or something like that. They can come in and kind of read through the specs and codes and documents and stuff.
Huh. Yeah, I got to look into that. That's interesting.
But yeah, I could track. I mean, if you're interested in setting something up, I could reach out to the people that would kind of help you along that path and at least get the checklist and start the ball rolling in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like that. If you could do that for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll shoot that over to you. So now, what are some things that you learned while you were in school that are really paying off at your former and current jobs?
The school didn't necessarily provide this, but it's pretty cheap. You could probably buy some or convince your school to buy some. And it was the foreign material packages through Weld Metals Online. Is who I ordered them through. It just comes with some coupons. I just wanted to experience more than stainless aluminum and steel, which is pretty much all we had there. A little bit, we had some chromoly, but that's kind of like high carbon steel. But yeah, the foreign material packets were fun. The main thing I learned was soft skills. I mean, like I was telling you about Brandon Pearsall, he whipped us into shape, and I remember the first day we all walked in and he made us shake his hand, right? And he corrected all of us on how to properly shake hands, and then started with resumes, which he made us all make resumes. And then after we all finished and he liked all of them, he told us that he paid a lady to make his look all professional and stuff. But yeah, the soft skills were huge. And then they would bring in local industry partners and we'd be able to meet them. Networking, it's one of the greatest things that I learned early because there was nobody else doing that, going around and getting everybody's phone number. So as soon as I did it, other people started doing it. And then I shot them a text message, say, hey, this is Bryn, just in case, down the line, either of us need a job or you got some work that you want help with or a question, reach out. Networking, soft skills, foreign materials was fun, but not, a lot of people don't need to weld copper, Inconel, or anything like that. A lot of people do, but not really around here. But
it's good to get exposure to it, though.
Right. And if I would have taken that and applied, paid attention in the metallurgy class, I could have learned some stuff. But
cut that learning curve a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I was arrogant.
Yeah, I think soft skills are an area that a lot of people kind of overlook when you go through a school. Same thing, like you said, just shaking your hand, shaking somebody else's hand, introducing yourself, networking. Those things are huge. Resume writing is big. I would do the same thing with my students. We'd go through and make them write a resume, and I'd say, hey, when you create your resume, create it in Word form, but also save it as a PDF. That way, when you send it out to an employer, you kind of lock the format that it's in, because formatting is so huge when it comes to a resume. Like the spacing, the fonts, and all that stuff. Once you lock it into a PDF and you send it out, what you send is what the employer receives. So understanding that going up front versus typing it up in a Word document, you send it, and they've got a different version of Word, and so they get different fonts and spacing and all that, and it looks like you didn't spend 10 minutes putting this thing together. It's all jumbled up. But I mean, I know that there's different resume writing software, but you should at least know how to do that yourself. Like if you had to create a resume from scratch, you should know how to do that. So soft skills are massively underrated when it comes to welding. I mean, I'd go out and talk to employers all the time. Hey, what skills are you looking for and a potential candidate applying for a position in your company, send us a good person. I mean, that's soft skills. You're going to learn that. I mean, being part of a team, getting out of your shell a little bit. And I know a lot of people have this misconception about millennials. I mean, you're younger, you're kind of following that generation of they don't want to network, they don't want to look up from their cell phones. So kind of passing those skills off to the next generation, that's huge. Networking is key. Networking is so massive in this industry. I owe everything I've been able to accomplish in this industry to my network, because there's no way I could do it by myself. Right. There's no way I could get where I am today by myself. It's always somebody I knew somebody else, and that afforded me an opportunity to do something different, go down a different path, earn my CWI, set up a AWS section, start the podcast, work with Weld.com, get my CWE, get my welder performance qualifier endorsement, like all that I've been able to do through my network. So if you graduate from welding school and you don't have the phone number or the contact information for at least 5 of your classmates, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. And then get out there and network, shake people's hands, talk to people, especially if you can get involved with a local section meeting or something like that. It's just going to breed more opportunities for your career and your welding journey.
Right. And it's crazy because when I was a freshman in that intro to welding class, you mentioned Weld.com. We were watching you and Bob when I was like 14, 15 years old.
Oh, now I'm feeling old.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago, though.
No, it wasn't too long. Yeah, I'm 19 now. And
yeah.
I could say the same thing. I could accredit a lot of my success this far to networking, and definitely the apprenticeship was the main boost. Like, being young in my grade helped. High school at 17, college at 18, bought the house at 19. I definitely wouldn't have been able to buy the house if it wasn't for that apprenticeship that early. They would pay us like we were teenagers, but it was still better than the grocery store that all the other students are working at, stuff like that. So it's, man, that apprenticeship was key for me.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. I mean, you kind of lucked out that they had something like that set up. We really didn't have anything like that in my area. Like I said, you go through the welding program, and then kind of once you graduate, it's like, hey, good job, good luck, do the best you can, and it was good knowing you. That's kind of what we got when we left. But yeah, having an opportunity to be part of an apprenticeship is huge. I wish that was something that more companies would bring back. I've talked to companies ad nauseum, like, what are you doing for employee training? Well, we can't find anybody, that can come in here and actually do what we need them to do. Well, yeah, because you want people with 5 to 7 years worth of experience, but you don't want to give the young man or woman coming out of a trade school a shot.
Right.
Like, bring them in, show them the ropes, pay them as an apprentice, give them, essentially the proverbial ladder to climb up, start them at an apprenticeship wage, kind of work them up through into like a journeymanship, and train them to do exactly what you need to do. And you're going to have a loyal employee because you provided the opportunities, you're paying them well, and they're enjoying the work. I think more companies should look into linking up with their local high schools, linking up with their local trade schools, and kind of setting up either an apprenticeship or a pathway into employment.
Yeah, and I think it's probably hard for the employer though as well, because, for example, me, I was with that company junior, senior year, and then half of college, so 2.5 years, and I think it's hard to retain that employee unless they actually talk to them, like, because you start at that apprenticeship wage, then after 2.5 years, you're training new guys. For my example, I was training homeless guys that had no experience. This company would hire people with no experience and stuff, but those people with no experience would come in making more than me because they're older, they're not an apprentice. But the apprenticeship was just a title. After 2.5 years, I had pretty much everything down in the shop. So that was one thing. That was probably the only negative to that whole program. But it takes a lot of communication between the employers and the the local school system.
Yeah, it's huge, and I think schools should be reaching out to the employers as well and saying, "Hey, here's we've got a program set up. Tell us what you need." I think a lot of times we get stuck in state mandated curriculum. Uh, Maybe that's not exactly what you need. Maybe that's not what your community needs. I mean, we had oxy-fuel welding as part of our state curriculum. It's like I've been in this industry for 26 years, working in the Central Florida area, and I've never once outside of welding school needed to fire up a torch and do some oxyacetylene welding. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great skill to have, but it shouldn't be part of the curriculum,
Yeah.
Put metallurgy in there, put fab math in there, put some NDT stuff in there. That's the stuff that people are going to be looking for and needing once they get out in industry.
If I could start a school, I'd put welder repair in there. I think that's been
huge.
One of my most useful, because not only did it apply to a welding machine, but also learning the basics of electrical. I knew nothing about it before, so I think that helps as well.
Oh, that's a whole nother area that they need to set up a program for that somewhere. I tried convincing my school. I was like, hey, if you think it's hard to find a welder, like try finding somebody that can work on these machines. My distributor's got one guy, and Jim is awesome, and Jim is great, and he knows his stuff, but it's literally just Jim working on all this equipment. And he's fast and efficient, but there's nobody teaches that stuff. Nobody teaches like how to rebuild a regulator, how to, swap out boards on the inside of a machine, troubleshoot aside from, drive roll tension, polarity, gas flow, like troubleshoot some stuff that's going on internally in the machine outside of your warranty. I mean, that'd be a huge program to set up. And I don't know where you could go to school to learn that, but I mean, that's definitely a necessity right now.
Right.
Is finding people that can work on the equipment.
And that class even taught us how to mix our own gas, which
that's cool.
Yeah, that was right before I left. They started to do that, but yeah, welder repair. I mean, he taught us on SA200s, Miller Matics, stuff like that. We learned on pretty much everything. But the thing that he would do, this was a perfectly running machine from the last year, repairing it, right? He would take anything, a stinger, and shove the stinger into the terminal, like the wrong end of the whip, and he would take screws and bolts out and just start cutting wires in there, throwing them across the shop, underneath the table, stuff like that. It was crazy, but it was fun. We would work in a group of 3 and go through the manual. I mean, I don't even think a lot of people go through the manual on their machine anymore.
No.
Like I didn't at that shop. When I came to this new one, they got me a brand new Dynasty 400 and a Delta Weld 350. So I was reading the machines because I was the one setting it up, or the manuals. I was reading the manuals, but even something as simple as the manual is just important. But yeah, welder repair is something I would recommend to everybody, every teacher, school to have.
That's pretty cool that they went that far in depth and kind of showed you all how to repair a piece of equipment.
It was
and then sabotaging it. I mean, that makes it even better because you got to go in there. You don't know exactly what happened to that machine. So the customer complains it's not working. That's about as far as we got.
Right. We went as far as ordering parts, going in the manual and finding the parts that we needed and ordering it through the school. Of course, we had to get the another instructor to use the college's card or whatever. But yeah, it was a different class, different kind of learning for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's completely different. I don't know anybody that teaches equipment repair, but it's something that we've got to figure out. Who knows that information? How do we get it passed off to the next generation? I mean, that's something you pretty much have to learn on the job. Is maybe a sales rep kind of working into that spot or something to that effect. But I mean, now it's just a computer that can weld for the most part. So you got to find somebody that's good at programming too.
Yeah.
It's usually when my rep comes in to fix a machine, he hooks his laptop up to it. He doesn't take any side paneling off. He's like, oh, no, you just need an update. Here you go. Plugs, some Ethernet cable in the back or a USB port in the front and fiddles with some knobs and boop, there you go. Now try it. Oh, yeah, man, that works. What happened? It needed an update. It's a welding machine. Why does it need an update?
What machines do you guys run there?
When I was teaching full time over at the school, we had like the Aspect 375s, and then we had the 300Cs and then the C300s. So I think with the C300, you got to update that with Ethernet, and then the 300Cs, they just got like a USB port right in the front. Same thing with the Miller ones too. They got a USB port right up front.
Yeah.
That's you can download updates and all that stuff, and different packages. I think they sell chips. Like Miller has like a specific USB you can purchase and do specific upgrades or unlock hidden features, kind of like a DLC for video games.
Yeah, I noticed the USB on the front of my Miller at work. I thought it would, because I know when I was at the school, the Feronius reps came out, and they were talking about how you can plug something in and your supervisor can be miles away and see how many welds you've done in this hour or whatever. I thought that's what it might have been for.
Yeah, you can do weld data monitoring. You can also preload WPSs or specific functions into that machine. So like a welding supervisor or something like that, they can come down from the brain shed and preload a procedure right onto your machine and kind of lock it out to where if you have to weld within a specific range as far as wire feed speed, voltage, amperage, whatever the case, that machine's going to keep you dialed into your given parameters. So instead of reading a WPS, they're just kind of locking the machines out to where you can only weld with these settings, plus or minus whatever the built-in tolerances are. You can kind of lock those out so people can't go in there and I like to weld a little bit hotter and crank it up, or I like to weld a little bit colder and turn it down, or you kind of have to stay within that given parameter.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Feronius techs, they taught me a lot too, even though I've ran a Feronius maybe a handful of times. That's about it. But yeah, those guys are super knowledgeable.
Yeah, there's just so much to it, man. And that's the great thing about welding is you're never going to know it all. You're constantly learning new stuff all the time. There's constantly new subjects to dive into. Case in point, like metallurgy, area that I want to get better in. Like I've got the book. I can see it staring at me right in the face. I just need to pick it up and crack it open. Then I got online access. I need to start going through that. I just got to find the time. But yeah, there's just so much you can learn in this trade, so much you can learn in this industry, and the networking aspect of it is huge. You can learn so much from so many other people. It's insane. Find a good mentor. That's a big one.
Yeah. You hosting this podcast, it kind of gives you the best of both worlds through networking as well as educational. I mean, people from walks of all over the industry you get to speak to. So that's awesome. Yeah,
that's the fun part. You get to, learn right along with all the listeners and stuff, because all the questions I have for most of the guests that are on here, they're genuine. Like, I don't know. Tell me, teach me. I'm ready to learn.
Right.
Now, because you also run a podcast as well. Why don't you, before we get out of here, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your podcast, where they can find you on social media?
Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Audible. I can't even name Castbox. I can't name them all, but the Iron Insight podcast. It's myself and a good buddy named Andrew from Southern Leather Works. He does leather hoods, belts, all kind of custom leather making. Iron Insight Pod on all Instagram and TikTok are our main platforms. And then myself, Bryn Welds, BrynWelds on all platforms.
Well, great, Bryn. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I look forward to chatting with you between now and FabTech, but hopefully you'll be able to make it down here to Orlando for FabTech this year. We'll link back up again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to this month's episode of Weld Wednesdays with AWS, brought to you by the American Welding Society. For more information on how you can get involved with AWS, just head on over to the website, aws.org. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.